Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Azrin, the language nerd here, owner of the Calgary Language Nerds, and welcome to today's podcast episode and, of course, YouTube video. Today, I'd like to give some advice for having smoother conversations in whatever language you are trying to learn. People really struggle with conversations. It's probably the thing that people struggle with the most, the speaking side of a language. Some people feel anxious about speaking, so they freeze up. Some people, they can't do all the grammar conjugations in their head, or they try to and they fail. Some people don't understand what's being said to them, so they therefore can't reply. There's a whole myriad of things that people struggle with that make speaking in another language very difficult. And my hope is that I can share some advice today that makes it a little bit easier. Now, the advice that I'm going to share today is inspired by Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. If you've watched my recent YouTube videos or listened to my recent podcast episodes, you guys know that I have been doing Jiu Jitsu for about 3 or 4 weeks. Now, Jiu Jitsu is a martial art where you find yourself pinned in very uncomfortable situations or positions. You're pinned on the ground, and someone is essentially trying to make you tap out. They're trying to make you submit. They might do that by choking you. They might do that by putting your arm in some kind of an arm lock, which is very painful. And so you tap out, you submit. There are a number of ways they can make you submit, and therefore you lose, they win. So as a result, in jiu-jitsu, you're taught a number of escapes. You're taught different ways to escape if you're pinned on the ground in whatever way. You're taught how to escape it so that you're not choked out, for instance. Now, what's interesting is recently, very, very recently, through my jiu-jitsu classes, I've learned that the first step to escaping whatever pin or hold that you're in is to stop trying to escape. What I was doing wrong before, and I think it's pretty common from what I can tell, what a lot of white belts and beginners do is when they're pinned, they try all the escape moves that they've been taught. And what ends up happening is they basically flail around, and the person who's got them pinned is able to keep them pinned relatively easily. And then they get an easier submission because you're so tired. You've wasted all this energy trying to escape when there wasn't an escape available to you, right? And so then you're just tired, and the person on top of you can easily submit you, and you lose. It just expedites how quickly you lose. So the first step is to stop trying to escape. The first step is, can you survive a little longer? Can you defend a little longer? Yes, you're pinned, but can you delay the person isolating your arm and getting an arm bar? Can you delay the moment from when they choke you out? Can you delay it? What can you do? And you're taught a number of ways to delay it using frames and things like that, right? And if you can delay it, you stay in the match longer, right? Which is important. There's a language connection to that specifically. You stay in the match longer, and you have more opportunities to then find the opportune moment to escape. Because you can't just escape at any moment. There are certain moments, there's windows that open up where you can then actually escape successfully. Whereas if you flail around trying to escape at any given moment, well, you're trying to escape when it's probably physically impossible to actually escape. So you're wasting your energy for nothing. So step one is stop trying to escape, just defend, survive, stay alive. Yes, you're pinned and you're stuck, but you can at least delay the moment that you're choked out or whatever it is. So what's the key here? What's the connection to language learning? Well, the connection is that a lot of people in language, when they're learning a language and they're in a conversation, they do things that shorten the conversation. They quote unquote escape. They try to escape. And what the result is, the conversation gets cut way shorter than it needed to have been cut short by. That was a weird sentence. Whatever. So in jiu-jitsu, when you flail around, you just get choked out and the match is over way faster, right? What you want to do is keep the match going. You want to stay in the match, right? Because the longer you stay in the match, the higher the likelihood you get a win, or that you escape this bad situation, you can go on the attack. Well, language too, when you're in that conversation, you want to stay in that conversation as long as possible. But language learners, because they're anxious, nervous, they don't know what to say, whatever it is, they try to run away from the conversation. They run away, maybe quite literally, I've done that myself, where I literally run away or walk away from a conversation. I was in a convenience store in China once. I've told this story before. I was in a convenience store in China once, and I was talking to the cashier, or rather, he was talking to me, asking me questions like, "Where are you from? Why are you in China?" And I was really struggling to understand and reply. And he starts laughing at me a little bit, and I felt so awful. I felt so self-conscious, and I paid as quickly as possible and just left the store. I tried to cut the conversation as short as possible. I might have even overpaid and not gotten my change. So you might physically run away. That cuts the conversation short. You might switch to English or your first language. Maybe you're talking to someone in Japanese. You're learning Japanese. They are Japanese, but maybe they speak English better than you speak Japanese. So you try a few sentences in Japanese, it feels awkward, and you escape by switching back to English, and that's that, right? You might even do it by not even talking to real people. Maybe you don't even talk to real people. You just avoid situations where you'd converse to a real human being altogether. Maybe that's how you escape. You don't even enter the game, right? Like I'm trying to learn Jiu Jitsu and I don't even go to practice Jiu Jitsu with real people. I only practice at home because I'm scared of going with real people. Or I'm trying to learn to swim, but I'm too scared to go to the pool, right? That's another form of escape. And so the first thing is you need to stop trying to escape. Stop when you are talking to someone and it's awkward. You can't find the right word. You don't know how to say something. You get stuck on a grammar point. Don't try to escape the situation. That's the wrong thing to do. And yet it's what all the language learners tend to do. I also tend to do this. It's the first thing you think is, I got to escape. What do you do instead? Well, you've got to stay in the match, just like in jiu-jitsu, right? Like if I'm pinned, I don't want to expedite the process of me being submitted, choked out, arm locked, whatever, arm barred, whatever. Right? I want to stay in the match as long as possible. Well, you want to stay in the conversation as long as possible. So what are some ways to do this? Well, let me give you some different tangible, practical things you can do. Number one, actually say this out loud. Say, oh man, I want to say this. I don't know how to. 1 second. Take out your phone, open up a translator or a dictionary, look it up on the spot. I do that all the time. I'll be like, literally a week and a half ago, I was talking to someone in Mandarin, and I wanted to say something, and I couldn't think of how to say it. I didn't know all the words. It was a very technical conversation about the housing market in Canada. Good Lord, I don't know half the words to talk about that properly in Mandarin. So there were things I wanted to say, and I didn't have the words. So I would say often, I want to say something, and I don't know how. 1 second, please. Type it up, look in a dictionary, look in a translator, right? Then I would show the person I was talking to, hey, is this a word in your language? If I say this and I say the sentence using the word I find, does that make sense? And they go, oh, yeah. And they understand? Perfect. You said the right thing. And then you keep going. You stayed in the conversation. You didn't just run away. You stayed in it a little bit longer. You used a crutch, you used a tool, the phone, but that's okay. You stayed in the conversation. Something else you might do, I do this all the time. I will say, let me think. Someone asks me a question, and I say, let me think. I say it all the time. Let me think. And I pause for like 8 seconds. 8 seconds is a long time, by the way. Like it feels long when you pause for 8 seconds. Let me show you an 8-second pause. Watch how long it feels. See, that's a long time, 8 seconds. It's a long time. That was 8 seconds. But in a conversation, you can do that, and you can probably think up a good sentence to say in those 8 seconds, or at least the start of the sentence, right? Where a lot of people try to reply instantly, and they get caught trying to reply so quickly. Slow it down. Say out loud, let me think for a second. Let me think about that. And pause. Think. It keeps you in the game. It keeps you in the conversation, as opposed to cutting the conversation short. What else can you do to keep the conversation going? I love short replies. Short replies. Yes, Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, interesting. It keeps you in the conversation. It keeps you in the game. If you're more intermediate level, you might have like a 12-sentence reply you want to say, but you think, whoa, that's so overwhelming, and I don't know if I can get that out. You might say, okay, let me find a simpler version of that, and you give a 3-sentence reply. That's not exactly what you wanted to say, but it kept you in the conversation. It at least kept it going, right? Whereas most people might go, oh my God, 12-sentence reply. Oh, I don't know how to say that. Let me just say it in English, especially if the person speaks your first language, right? So short replies can be your friend. Another tool, questions. I love questions. Probably one of my favorite tools to use in conversations to keep me in the conversation, to keep it going as long as possible, right? I'll say, when I was talking to this guy from China like a week and a half ago, I'd ask him so many questions, because when you ask a question, you need to say one sentence only. Questions are one phrase. They're going to talk for 12 sentences now, not you. That's fine. One sentence all day long, my friends, all day long. I can do that. The best part of questions is you don't even have to understand everything they said back to you. If you understand half of what they said, you ask a question about the half you understood. It keeps you in the conversation. That's better than not being in the conversation. It's way better than you going, oh my God, I only understood 50% of the conversation. Well, that sucks. I don't know what to do about this. I'm stuck. That's not good. That's not good at all. But if you ask a question based on the 50% you understood, or whatever percentage, you can keep it going. So I do that all the time. I ask the guy, hey, how long have you been in Canada? Oh, I've been here for whatever he said. I think it was a year. Been here for a year, only 2 weeks in Calgary. Oh, why did you come to Calgary? Oh, blah, blah. And he gave me a long answer. I understood the gist. He basically said something like, oh, basically the gist was he didn't like Winnipeg. He was in Winnipeg. He didn't like it. I didn't understand exactly what the reasons were. I kind of did, but not 100%. I was like, well, he didn't like it. And I was like, okay, well, I know he didn't like Winnipeg. I'm going to ask, do you like Calgary? Oh, well, do you like Calgary? Is Calgary better than Winnipeg? I can ask that. Right? It doesn't matter. They didn't understand 40% of what he said. It's no big deal. Just ask, oh, do you like Calgary more than Winnipeg? So questions, I love questions. Slow down. Put gaps between your sentences. That's a great way to buy yourself more time. Stay in the conversation. So you want to give an 8-sentence reply or whatever. You want to say what you want to say. You don't even know how many sentences, but you want to say something. And you start the sentence off and you hit a stumbling block. You don't know how to phrase something. Pause, think, and go, huh? And then keep going. It's okay. Just like in like I was saying for Jiu Jitsu, like you're pinned. It's okay. Don't try to run away. Just take a breath and accept that, yes, this is an awkward situation. You don't know how to say the word you want to say. You don't know exactly how to phrase it. Take a breath. Slow down. It's okay that there's pauses between your sentences. No big deal. Maybe you don't understand what they said, and that's why you're not able to reply. Maybe if you did understand, you probably could reply, but they said something and you're like, I didn't get that. What tools do you have? You have lots of tools at your disposal. You can say, pardon? Excuse me? What did you say? Can you repeat that? You can have them say it again. You can say, can you speak a little slower? That's hit and miss. Sometimes they speak slower, sometimes they don't. Not everyone knows how to slow their speech down. It is what it is. But at least there's a 50% chance the person slows down and it's better for you, right? That's good. Keeps you in the conversation, right? It at least indicates to the person that there's some communication gaps and they'll try whatever they can to make it easier for you to understand. They'll try at least, right? They'll say a few more sentences. It kept you in the conversation. That's the whole moral of this podcast and YouTube video. You got to stay in the conversation as long as possible. It keeps you in there, right? You can even maybe ask about a specific word or phrase that you didn't understand. You say, oh, I didn't quite catch that word. What does that word mean? Can you say that? I don't know what that means. and they might say it differently. It keeps you in the conversation and gives you a chance, just like in Jiu Jitsu. It's so funny how this parallel works quite well. In Jiu Jitsu, you want to stay in the fight as long as you can, because the longer you stay in, the higher the chance you will find an opportunity to escape the bad situation and then go back on the attack. In language, you're not going to go on the attack or anything, but the longer you stay in, the higher the chance you can maybe understand what they said to you and find the right reply. Or the better the chance you can find the right words and kind of get your point across, right? Or the higher the chance that they might realize what you're trying to say, even though you didn't really fully get it out, and they say it for you, and you go, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. But you've got to stay in that conversation as long as you can. So I hope that these tools were helpful, right? I hope that these were helpful for you. As a quick little summary, right? Slow down, put some gaps between your sentences, ask lots of questions. That's a great way to stay in a conversation. Give short replies, right? Little short replies when needed. If you can't think of the long one and you are thinking of tapping out of the conversation, well, give a short reply instead. It's better than cutting the conversation short. You might say, let me think about that. That buys you time to think about what you want to say. You might say, oh, I want to say something, but I don't know how. Let me look it up. You look it up, and then you can then continue the conversation that way. You can use words and phrases like, sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, I didn't understand that. Can you speak slower? What does that word mean? You can use phrases like that to have the person try to reiterate, rephrase what they said to you, and keep the conversation going and increase the chance of you understanding what they said and finding the right reply, right? These are all things you can do to stay in the conversation longer and, yeah, stay in the conversation longer, essentially, and help the conversation go a little bit more smoothly. Okay? Well, let's wrap that up there. Hope that was a helpful podcast, helpful YouTube video for you guys. As always, please feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. You can email me by going to azrinthelanguagenerd.com/contact and to send me a quick email. On social media, you can message me at Polyglot Azrin, POLYGLOT AZ or ZREN. You can find me there, and feel free to send me a message if you have any language learning questions. See you later. Bye-bye.